Hi, I'm Glen Van Peski, founder of Gossamer Gear, currently residing in Carlsbad, California, soon to move to Bend, Oregon. And here today to show you what's in my pack. My typical hike right now is, due to schedule, limited to kind of 3 or 4 days. So my current pack reflects that. Obviously I'd make some adjustments for longer hikes. My favorite place to hike is above tree line, so my kit reflects that. I always have trekking poles. I use them to set up my shelter, and also like it for, I'm often off trail, so that's helpful. My sleeping pad is also the frame on my Murmur pack. It's a 3/8 inch foam pad, just sized for my torso. I can throw my empty pack or something else under my legs, and usually have shoes or stuff sack, something under my head. I like to carry, I'm often, living on the West Coast, I'm often hiking in more arid environments, so I like the ability to carry a fair amount of water. Depending on the hike, I might supplement this, but my basic setup is I like to carry a 3-liter platypus, usually with only 1.5 liters to 2 maybe in it, and I stow that behind my pad. Keeps the water cool, it's easy to refill without getting into your pack, and also keeps one of the heavier items, the water, with the lower moment of gravity. I like having water in a platy because I find I hydrate more if the tube's right there, and everything works better if I'm well hydrated. So that's something I don't go without. For other water, I have a smart water bottle with a pop top, sport top. I like to prevent cramps, I like to have some electrolytes. So I will mix it up in this so it doesn't gunk up my tube, easier to clean. Also, sometimes it's easier to scoop water out of things with a bottle. It has I like the tall bottle. It's easier, especially as I get older, to pull it out of the pocket. And so I have a silicone band which helps on that. It's also glow in the dark. So at night, if you wake up and you want a drink of water, it's easy to find where your water bottle is. We'll start on the other outside of the pack items. I carry an extra top for the platypus, so when I'm in camp and I want to fill it up with water, I'm not messing with the hose. It's just a convenience item, not really necessary. Here's the emergency for electrolytes. Here's if I'm having to get water out of a shallow pond or something, sometimes a Ziploc bag is handy. And also, if I'm measuring for meals, I put measuring marks on that. So that's my measuring cup. And then this is my toiletries kit. I've got half shop towels that, if you know how, you can get 4 wipes out of. And then I've got some sanitizer, some wipes, and a heavy-duty plastic bag to put the used ones in. That's on the outside. Then going to the inside, I've got my clothes bag. So in here is stuff that I'm not wearing. Now when I'm hiking, I'm typically dressed like this. I like long pants, zip-offs, so I can hike in shorts sometimes, but it's often very sunny, and to save on sunscreen, it's nice just to be able to cover completely up. A long sleeve shirt, again, you can make a short sleeve shirt. It's easy to wash on the trail, dries quickly. And then things that I'm not typically wearing, also for shoes, I like the Ultras, found them very comfortable. I typically go with short socks. They're lighter, they seem to do the trick. If I was on a trail that had a lot of DG or grit, or just depending on the trail, I might add gaiters, a pair of lightweight gaiters to that. So for insulation, and this isn't completely necessary, my kit here, base weight without food and water, is right around 5 pounds. I can go lighter, but if I'm just throwing stuff together, this is usually what I take. A little insulation is nice, so this is just a Montbell insulation piece. For rain, I've got a Berghaus jacket, about 4 ounces. It's got a hood, full zip. And then just a simple fleece hat, some lightweight gloves. Again, my style is typically I enjoy walking when I'm in the backcountry, so I don't have a lot of stuff for sitting around. I'll walk most of the day, and that enables you to get by with a lot less insulation because you're either in your sleeping bag basically or you're walking, which when you're walking that generates heat. The one thing that is nice in camp is a pair of fleece socks. This is probably one of the oldest pieces of equipment I have because I haven't found a replacement yet. It's nice, a little extra insulation on the feet. And then also, this isn't totally necessary, but for camp shoes sometimes, a lot of times I'll go to Buckskin Gulch, and so you're crossing a river 100 times a day, your feet are wet all day, and it's nice when you get to camp to get out of those wet shoes. So I can slip on my fleece socks, a pair of hospital booties, and you've got very light camp shoes. And then I've got a rain skirt, just to cover kind of to the knees. These pants dry in nothing flat, and so that's usually enough. All that's in a stuff sack, very light stuff sack. Then next is my cooking kit. This is actually probably the same vintage as those purple fleece socks. I just took a grocery bag and sewed one out of sil nylon because it lasts longer, more sustainable. So I've got a insulated stuff sack that serves as a cozy. And inside this is my cooking kit. So I've got a beer can pot, and I use Esbit to cook. So I keep the Esbit in a separate container. I use wet fire tinder, which is really, to me, the secret to cooking with Esbit, because you just have to touch it with a match, it lights, and you can't put it out. So it's crazy effective for lighting the Esbit. You just flick off like the size of a thumbnail, put it on top of the Esbit, and it will light. So I'll take a little screen so I don't muck up the ground, a little piece to put the Esbit in. Then I have a Trail Designs Caldera. This is a titanium one, so if you're in an area where it's safe to burn small wood, you could actually do that. I very rarely do that. Put that over, put the can in, and boil your water. For boiling the water, boiling the bag type meals, I'll just boil water, pour it in. A lot of meals I find are enhanced by some simmering, so I've got a little piece of titanium foil, and what I will do is once the water's boiling and I add the food, I'll put this titanium foil over the Esbit so just the two ends go, and then simmer it for another 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes the enhanced meal is worth cleaning the pot. It just tastes better with the full cook. So that's my cooking kit. I've got a bamboo spoon, and then I've got a bear bagging kit. If I'm traveling, I'm often in the Sierras. If I'm traveling in an area where a bear canister is required, I carry a bear canister. But I typically, since I'm only out for 3 or 4 days, I always look at the required areas and typically plan my trips to avoid those for weight reasons, obviously. So this is just some Spectre line, a carabiner, and then a garlic bag to use as the rock sack. So that's my cooking gear. Then I've got my sleeping bag. So this is something I had made custom. I have actually 2 of these, one like a 30-degree bag that weighs 18 ounces in a tall, and a 20-degree that weighs 22 ounces. And it's a full sleeping bag, no zipper, because zippers are heavy, and no down in the bottom, because down is no good carrying the weight when you're lying on it and compressing it. So you have the advantages of a sleeping bag in terms of no breezes sneaking their way into your quilt. I'm often under a tarp, so I don't have any bugs crawling on me because I'm completely enclosed, but you have the weight savings. I do like a hood just for full warmth, and so that's my sleeping bag. And then for shelter, typically I'm taking the Wedge. This is a real minimalist shelter. It's kind of the great shelter to use when you're pretty sure it's not going to rain. I have been out in the rain in it, and it requires being smart about where you set up and a little shelter. But it only weighs under 3 ounces, so it's very effective. Some stakes, a half a polycryo ground sheet. If the weather's good, my preference is just a cowboy camp. And then to put it all in, if rain's expected, I have a trash liner bag. This is a Mylar bag that exterminators use. They give you when you're having your house tented to put your stuff in. And so I will put everything in that if I expect it to rain. So that's most of my big stuff, and everything left is all the small stuff's in a small stuff sack for organization. And this includes items that I would normally have on my body just for efficiency. One of those is reading glasses. I'm at the age where for really fine print, it's nice to have some reading glasses. These are I4U lenses, super lightweight. Also in my pocket would be sunscreen. I get samples from my dermatologist. I like to keep those in a pocket because then I find I actually will use them. Otherwise, if I have to get into my pack, I typically don't. Also, I will have a bandana. Typically, I just keep that in my pocket. I'll wet one corner, put a little soap on it to wash off, use the rest of it to dry. I will also typically around my neck have a whistle. I've been on trips where we've lost the trail in the snow like several times during the day, and we have to split up and look for it. And sometimes it's useful to have a whistle just to communicate with other members of the team. And then this also is my blade for cutting bandages or anything else. It's a DermaSafe blade, very light. Also, I'm a big note taker, and I don't usually take notes so much about the trip, but it's usually about gear, what worked, what didn't work, either stuff I had or stuff other people had. And so for that, I'll have a sheet or two of waterproof note paper and a Sharpie marker. Then also in my pocket will be my water treatment, since you're getting into that off and on during the day. I just use regular household bleach. I don't treat every water source. It depends on how good I think it is, and that depends on the dosage too. And then I've, out of a paint strainer that you can just buy at the hardware store, I've created a little filter that I use to keep floaties out of the water. So I've sized it to just fit on my Smart Water bottle, and as you put water in, it catches the major floaties. So that's in my pocket. And then also to prevent chapped lips and for sunscreen, I've got a mini lip balm. So that stuff is usually in my pocket rather than in here. Then remaining items in the small ditty is dental hygiene. I've got a fingertip toothbrush. I've got a small vial of Dr. Bronner's peppermint Castile soap that I use for any kind of wash up, and also toothpaste. And then some single-use dental floss. I've got a headlamp, and this is actually one area that I've added weight. I've hiked hundreds of miles at night with the much smaller photon light, but I don't know, this is convenient. It's nice to have a little extra light sometimes. And then Tylenol PM, I have a, as you can see, a very small pad, and so sometimes it's nice to have just a little something extra. And then everything else is emergency and first aid. I keep that in a separate waterproof bag, and typically on a trip I'm typically not getting into this bag, but I'll give you a general idea of what's in it. I've got a very small signaling mirror, I've got some duct tape, a pair of scissors, and a safety pin. I've also got a needle and thread in there. For emergency fire starting, I have a sparker and some tinder. Also, I keep a very small super glue in here. Use that for wound closure, blisters, or repairs. Then I've got some basic medications in here. Nothing fancy, just some basics. I'm prone to fever blisters, so I've got some prescription medicine for those. A piece of tenacious tape for repair, and then just some basic bandages, wound closure, items like that. That's what's in my pack.